Hello and welcome to the Six Sales Podcast. My name is Mike Nicholson. I'm your host today. I'm going to be speaking to John Walsh, the founder of Jobs in Adtech and the Adtech Chat. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, yeah. It's a nice warm day in London.
Yeah, a very warm day on the Victoria line in particular. But by the time people are listening to this, sadly, it'll probably be raining or some such horrible English weather. Thank you for coming in. Much appreciated. I wanted to start off, if I may, straight in with a hard question, perhaps, or maybe it's an easy one, I don't know. But if I could make you 18 again, so yes. It's the year 2024, and poof, you are now 18 again.
Yes.
Would you still embark on a career in Adtech?
Do you know what? I think that if I could go back actually earlier than 18, I'd have worked much harder at school and I'd have got into something like banking or finance. I just had a love for advertising from literally being like 7-8 years old and loving the TV ads of the time. And that I always wanted to work in advertising. Although I used to think that working in advertising was about making the ads. I didn't really understand like the media side of it.
The slots that the ads go in.
I never thought about how do they get there. And I managed to get a job in ad sales when I was in my very early 20s. I don't regret getting into advertising. I still think it's a fascinating industry. I mean, ad tech itself is a fairly recent phenomenon, with the rise of technology and the rise of the internet and how ads get placed. And a lot of the time, I think it's really ad tech is almost synonymous with programmatic, really. So I do find the tech stuff really, really interesting, but I also think it's opened up a lot of questions about when we use technology, it means that there's some stuff that we can't see. And there's a lot of trust required. And I
come from a press background, right? And then I worked at the Telegraph in digital before programmatic. And I remember really early days, clients ringing up saying, well, we've been on the website and we've looked around and we can't see our ad.
Yes.
And it was a genuine question. And at the time it was like, well, you can't be running our ad because we can't see it. They're not thinking that there's billions of impressions and you're just some of those impressions.
Well, I come from the same background, right? So I started in print and press a long, long time ago. I was at The Independent. And I saw this digital thing or the internet thing in 2000 going, oh, that looks exciting. I want to get into that. But it was mostly out of frustration and boredom with just selling quarter pages, half pages, full pages, double page spreads. And I stupidly thought there would be much more creativity in a digital world. And that's why I jumped. I didn't know, I didn't have the vision for how big the internet could really be or the World Wide Web would really be. And I've just kind of semi-blindly ridden that wave ever since.
Right. So the answer to the question is yes, you would?
The answer to the question is I think I could probably, if I really thought about it, no, I probably wouldn't. And I would try and do something that either I would make much more money in or would try and change the world a bit more in. Not unfortunately, the path that I took wasn't the university one. And I think that restricts a lot of choices. And I think if I could go back in time or start at 18 again, I'd probably go to university and that would open up a world of more options for me.
Yeah. I wonder how many other people would do the same. Like, I wasn't brilliant at school. I didn't like the academic route. I didn't go to university. And now when you're a bit older, actually I have a love for learning now, but I didn't have a love for learning when I needed to, like when the exams are happening. Very interesting. So John, it's your lucky day. So I've made you 18 again.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm now going to make you the leader of the ad tech world.
Yes.
And for this very brief podcast episode, unfortunately. So I'd like you to tell us, please, one thing you would like to start.
Yeah.
One thing you would like to continue. And one thing that you would like to stop. And then the reasons why you've chosen those.
So one thing I'd like to start is I would like to see companies open sourcing their technology far more, sharing their methodologies around things far more. I think it's really hard for us to create distinctions between different SSPs or different DSPs or ad verification companies without really understanding the technology. a lot more. So to see that open sourced and shared more widely, I think could help companies create their own distinctions more, and you'd be able to see which horse for which course.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to see more in terms of continuing.
Can we stop there just for a second? I think that's a really interesting one. I was talking to one of the many companies that say they measure that they optimize towards attention recently, and they said they couldn't tell us everything that they measure because that's their IP, and if they were to make it open source or available or transparent or whatever you want to call it, then everyone would be able to copy it. So where do you draw the line between, we've got our secret sauce here that seems to work. We want to be transparent, but we don't want to be so transparent that it could be copied.
I still believe that being transparent around that, I think you've got more to gain than you have to lose. I think that by doing that, let's say you've got some secret data that you've got access to. It's not really that secret because you're probably going to be paying for it, or you're not paying for it and it's being kind of swiped somehow and you don't want to talk about it. Look, the transparency is by shining sunlight on something. And I think that too many companies overvalue not their IP per se, but their methodology. And I think that from a marketing perspective, being open and transparent is always going to win. You gain trust by doing that, especially if people can go, I'd love to take a little look at your code, and the right people. I could look at the code for Google. It doesn't mean I can replicate it. I could look at the code for Facebook. I can't replicate it because where they win is on the network effect. And I think even if you have a certain way of doing something, unless you have high volumes of that data and it comes from good quality sources, and then it comes to a contract question. It's like, well, can you look that up contractually and then you can talk about it? But otherwise it's, I just think trust is far lower if you're not more transparent.
I think on an Edelman survey, we came lower than bankers and politicians at one point, didn't we, advertising?
Yeah, I think
which is not great.
I remember, I think I tweeted about it about 3-4 months ago. It's like, we took one step up. Although I questioned, I think it was politicians that had fallen below us. And I was like, I questioned whether that was us stepping up or them falling lower.
Yeah, for sure. So that's one thing you would like to start then. So something you would like to continue?
What I'd like to continue is just the awesome community, the networking. And I don't like the word networking, but it's just the kind of camaraderie that I feel is present in the industry. That the level of rivalry that we see with each other or used to see with each other, I think is kind of fairly dissipated from the CEO level down to the executive level. And I think that that's great. And I think it will help push the industry further forward faster.
Yeah. Do you think that rivalry or the dissipation of that perceived rivalry is because now essentially absolutely anyone could be your rival? It's so difficult to identify who your rivals might be. I mean, going back to my press days again, I was at the Telegraph. I knew that the Guardian were our rival and the Times were our rival. But now it's like anyone that has media to sell is a rival. You can't hate everyone and you can't be suspicious of everyone, right?
Fragmentation of media means that there aren't that many rivals. I mean, everyone's a rival, no one's a rival, right? I think that in the social media space, sure, I think that Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and Snap rival each other for ad budget in a truer sense. But one of the wonderful things that I've seen over the last few years, and I've seen it firsthand, is the Independent, the Telegraph, the Times, News UK, Reach PLC, all of these guys no longer have the same level of rivalry. And I run a publisher WhatsApp chat just for pubs. And the support they give each other, the help they give each other, the insights they give each other over what's actually happening for them is really admirable and impressive. And I can't talk highly enough about how these guys are much more open and supportive of each other. In a programmatic first world, your brand means so much less. Yeah.
I totally agree with the people thing and the networking, although maybe that isn't the right word. Just on the way here to meet you, I surfaced at Oxford Circus Tube Station bumped into Jonathan Westbrook. I was early. We had a quick pint, had a natter, caught up with the world, and on we go. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? It's always going to be about the people. The technology is what perhaps everyone focuses on, but it's about the people that are operating Adtech, for sure.
Totally agree.
Okay, so that's one thing that you would like to start, one thing you would like to continue. What would you like to stop?
What would I like to stop? I think this is actually a far harder question. I can't, to be honest with you, rather than just giving a bullshit answer just to try and fill it in for you, I can't think about anything specifically. I think that trajectory-wise, we're doing fairly well. Continuing the transparency, I think, is important. So sort of ending something, there isn't really. I think
about the Google cookie saga, that would feel like it could go into room 101.
Well, no, I think the evolution of everything is great, and each company has to do what they feel is right for them, and then the market reacts, and entropy continues.
Fair enough. All right, good. So, talking of the people, jobs in Adtech, what was the inspiration behind it, first and foremost?
Jobs in Adtech primarily came out of just a need that I saw. That was just a gaping hole in the industry for how people can get hired and how companies can find people to hire. It was the end of 22. We had layoffs left, right, and centre. Pretty much, I can't think of a single company that wasn't impacted. I'd set up a WhatsApp group specifically for Adtech job seekers. At the time, I thought I would monetize it by charging a small fee to recruiters to be in there, and they'd be able to share their jobs and talk about what they're up to and support candidates. And I kept running into brick walls pretty much. And recruiters were like, well, we already have a large database of candidates. We don't need to pay for this, which I can respect. However, I kept trying to push on the fact it's like, no, this is about your brand. This is about how you talk and interact with people and becoming a valued, like a really valued company within the space. And a few months later, a buddy of mine came to me with the suggestion, actually, and it kind of made sense, but I wasn't really that into it. And then started the search for URLs I could purchase. And it was only after I could get jobsinadtech.com that I was like, okay, this is viable. I think anything else wouldn't work. I don't need to have a word brand that means nothing. Like, I wanted to be able to get the search results, get ranking on all the search engines. That was hugely important, and also a simple brand that stands out that people can remember, and
also a phrase that people might actually Google.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Well, because of that and a little bit of SEO, we're number one in search for, if you type in jobs in Adtech or Adtech jobs or work in Adtech. I think in the majority of countries around the world, I mean, I think I've checked in about 6. I know that's not the majority, but the kind of key ones like Germany and US and UK. And I think it's really useful having your brand say what it does, especially in a landscape of companies with company names that don't describe at all what they do. I think the Trade Desk is one of the few outliers that actually does. Yeah, they're a trade desk.
Yeah, for sure. And so if I think about the people that I spoke to about the market for jobs, probably beginning part of this year, maybe up till about June, it's quite a bleak picture. There were a lot of redundancies. There seemed to be a lot more people coming onto the market, not of their doing, if you like. But there feels like there's a little bit more enthusiasm, positivity around the job market at the moment. And I just wondered if you're seeing that, if you're seeing more jobs being posted. I know it's hard to try and extrapolate the whole market from one site, but are you seeing a bit more of a resurgence?
I see, because of because of LinkedIn, I'm well connected in the Adtech chat WhatsApp groups. I do see a lot more than just what's on the site. I will say that I looked this morning and I think we've got close to 100 live roles on the site right now. which I think is the highest we've ever had.
Great.
Possibly other than when we were free for the first 5-6 months. I think that there is positivity. I wouldn't get carried away with the positivity quite yet. We have a US election coming up. Basically everything comes down to the economy and economics. If the economy has an uptick, then jobs and recruitment will have an uptick too, and advertising will have an uptick. But I am cautiously optimistic right now. I'm hoping that, I don't want to use the word hope, I believe that Q4 things will continue to get better, and into Q1, Q2 next year they will do too. However, I still think that many economies are in a challenging environment right now, and I don't think it's all secure for the future. So it's kind of taking it day by day, week by week, and I think for job seekers out there, they just need to be going for it, really.
Yeah, and I wanted to move on to the job seekers because you and I have done some work together on trying to help people that were currently out of work and are looking for jobs and stuff like that. What would your advice be to, or anyone, I guess, but like there's a number of senior people that are being sort of made redundant, and then they're looking around and thinking, am I going to get another job? Because there's, I think Mark Reed from WPP was quite vocal about this being a young person's game, and he got quite lambasted for it. How would you speak to somebody that's just been made redundant, maybe looking around and thinking, am I going to get another gig? How would you sort of go about your job search? As you say, you see the industry from a number of different angles, so it'd be great to know what your thoughts are on that.
So I think that it's not just about the job search. I think it's about who is the job seeker, who are they being, right? So one of the problems that we've seen in the industry is that people have been able to ride the rising tide of just money coming into the industry, and they haven't had to work excessively hard in order to get promoted, in order to rise to senior roles. And there can be almost a level of delusion around what their expectations are. So I think realigning your own expectations rather than thinking, well, I'm X and I've done this and I achieved that. It's like, I think some humility is required. I also think it's an appraisal of their own financial situation. It's like, do you need a role today, or are you prepared to wait 3-4 months for the right thing coming up? And kind of really understanding that. And I also think, being selfish with that too. If you need a role tomorrow because you've got to put food on the table for your family, do it, take it, and use it as a stepping stone. Companies will do the same with staff. There are legacy staff at times when you just move beyond the who you have at the time. And I think that level of selfishness is required in our own careers a lot of the time. We don't like talking about it, but I think it's absolutely reasonable to be selfish. I also think don't blame your age or your race or your gender on why you're not getting interviews. I think that this is applicable to all. I think it is the hardest working people who are also decent people and help people and support. And I've seen a lot of that. I've seen people who are out of work on LinkedIn actually sharing other job opportunities for others. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's quite selfless, actually. I would also look at, how are you networking? How are you talking to people? How are you even talking about your job search? Is it a negative mindset that you currently have? And I don't like toxic positivity, but I do think that there's a level of understanding where you are in that journey, and understanding also it's a numbers game. But I think connecting with the right people, whether it's at the C-suite of companies you want to be talking to, or even starting, if you've got free time and you can start your own podcast and start to interview people, just get known, get connected, be out there, write blog pieces. Like, who are you? Let the world know who you are. And I think, we'll likely get onto it, but, understanding that everyone has a personal brand, even if that personal brand is zero. that, if people go, I've never heard of him, you're in a worse off position than you are of go, yeah, I know who he is. And I kind of have a feel that I know what he stands for, or she stands for.
Yeah, for evolutionary reasons, we tend to like and trust people and things that we're more familiar with. It's just a human fact.
It's ridiculous,
if you mention someone and I've heard of them, they already kind of have a bit of a benefit. Because and also the fact that you've mentioned them gives it a certain amount of gravitas. That's super important. So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about personal brand. So how do you go about? You have a big personal brand, a lot of which is based on what you've achieved and done in life, but also how you've projected that on places like the Adtech chat and LinkedIn and beyond. So what are your thoughts on the importance of that? Especially, I mean, I always say that the best time to start building your personal brand was probably your first day at work, but the second best time is now. And a lot of people that I speak to that have just been made redundant are kind of starting now because they didn't think that they needed to do it before, and now they do. And that's a shame because it's harder to start and then get results quickly. It's kind of a thing that goes with you through your whole career, right? But
agreed.
How do you think about it? And we can, I think we can replace personal brand with reputation.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If you hate personal brand, because some people get all upset about the idea of having a personal brand.
I much prefer the word reputation, actually, because reputation follows you. And I think that your reputation is also what you do, how you treat people like offline or in one-to-one interactions, as much as it is in kind of like a like this broadcasty style. How I think about it is that I'm quite chatty anyway. I like people, and I always have done. It's kind of why I chose a sales career early doors. And I got the opportunity. For me, I really got the opportunity. I think 2018, 2019, where having studied blockchain, I was given the opportunity to write for City AM or Crypto AM, which is part of City AM back then. And I could just write, and it was kind of like whatever I wanted to write about the blockchain or Bitcoin or crypto type space. And that helped raise my profile. And then it also, for whatever reasons, it gives you that kind of credibility behind what you say. I dropped that early mid 2019, but I've continued to write and talk and do podcasts like this about subjects that I'm interested in, right? I think it's been really important for me, it's been hugely important. But it isn't by design. All I really want to do is express who I am. And either people will gel with that or they won't gel with that. And that's okay either way. And from my perspective, it's also about not being overly critical or critical at all of other people and how they do it too. I think the only thing that I would say is there's got to be a very high degree of authenticity. And for me, I feel that in the kind of role that I have today, I'm able to really closely align who I am personally with who I am professionally. And that's just, it means it's really easy for me because I can just be myself and talk about whatever it is I want to talk about. And also give people the freedom to be able to challenge that too, where it's I think that kind of conversation around things is really important. And engagement in the true sense, rather than what we call kind of engagement from a social media perspective. I just think it's like, let's converse around this. Let's debate around this. You know, the thing I mentioned earlier about, I think, open sourcing and transparency. I'd love to have a conversation with someone who kind of like could really argue it from the other side, but was also open to listening. And I'm open to listening too. I'm open to learning. And, you know, when I think about it from my own perspective, my personal brand, I just want people to see me for who I really am rather than any other sort of perspective.
Yeah.
I watch some really niche videos that are loads of people would think that are just boring or irrelevant, and that's fine. It's my thing. The same way that you know, there's one channel that it's not my thing, but you know, a friend of mine's really into like Pokemon, and there's a Pokemon shop. I'm trying to remember where it is. I think it's up in Berkshire or somewhere, and they've got like a live stream going on all the time, and they've got they cut down their videos, and those videos get like 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 views. to me, that's crazy. But you know what? There's hundreds of thousands of people out there who actually want to watch this stuff. And it's the same thing. It's like, what is your particular flavor? What is it that you really know about? And it might be deep tech. It might be, just understanding publishers or publisher needs. And it's actually something you really care about. And I think it needs to be something you really care about rather than just something you kind of have a fleeting knowledge of. And kind of where I think, for me, where my speciality is that I don't come at things from an ad tech perspective. I try and come at things from a real kind of macro perspective and almost a consumer perspective. I come at it from the human point of view. And that's allowed me to talk a lot about, individuals. I don't really talk about companies that much. So people talk about finding your voice, but it's kind of like finding your niche and expressing who you are in that way. I think it's a really wonderful thing. And, hiding your light under a bushel helps no one. No. I think sharing who you are, sharing your knowledge, sharing your expertise, I think is a really great thing to do. And you'll connect with your tribe in that way. And I believe that everyone has some specialism. Everyone has an area that's particular.
Everyone has a slightly different experience. Even if you've been in ad tech sales your whole life, you've had a different variant of ad tech sales in different companies that you work with, working with different people, different influences, different tech, different. So you're going to have a slightly different view on the same subject as everyone else. I quite like that idea of writing for what you care about and then finding your tribe. What a lot of people, that if you've just got the standard LinkedIn account, you might be judging your content based on how many people like it, comment on it and share it. And that is the vast majority of people on LinkedIn don't use LinkedIn as a social media platform. They use it as a news feed. So they come in, they read, and they go away again. So what you'll find, if you have a premium account or more, you can see how many views it gets. Sometimes a post that's got very little what we would call real engagement, i.e. likes, comments, shares, gets quite a lot of views. And the reason for that is because people stop and read. And so LinkedIn goes, people like this, so I'm going to show it to more people. So that's what you should be looking at. It's not a popularity contest. It's not, I need 10 people like that, and 2 of them were my parents. And so maybe I should stop talking, because that isn't how people are using the platform. It's not a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing. Correct. It's that's quite interesting. I might read that. Pressing see more, for example, opens up. That tells LinkedIn that somebody's interested in reading this, therefore somebody else might be interesting. So writing for yourself, or not writing for yourself, but writing the stuff that you care about makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and not caring about what anyone else thinks is such a it's such a gift if you can get there. I spoke to somebody, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. He said he's got a goal of getting one LinkedIn post to 100 likes or 100 reactions. I saw that same post.
And I was like, it doesn't matter. It's not about popularity in that sense. It's for me, it's just about expressing who you are. And look, we express who we are all the time, even if you don't realize it. And by not expressing who you are, you're still expressing who you are. And people know that's one of the guys that he doesn't really talk. I don't really know him, which is still a factor that people consider when, like, who are you?
Yeah. We're going to run out of time, so I'm going to skip past the next question and move on to some of the challenges that we might be facing in our industry at the moment. So if I think back, I think one of the reasons I don't agree that this is a young person's game is because if you don't know what went before and you don't know how cycles work, then you could panic when things are in a little bit of a dip, right? Scott Dutram wrote about this a few months ago, where the more senior, seasoned person will say, "Oh, well, I've been here, I've done that. The .com boom bust, saw all that happen. I know it's cyclical. I know it will come back." And I think one of the things that I've seen change, which might not come back unless we solve it, is the FaceTime that the sell side of our business gets with the buy side of our business. Now, in my very early days of media, there was no internet. Would you believe? I didn't even have a computer on my desk, because I'm really showing my age. And these are 4K cameras, right? You can really see the huge amount of grey hair I have. But there was press, radio, TV, cinema, outdoor, That was pretty much the media landscape. And there were only a few companies in each of those media that were dominating. And so getting FaceTime with agencies and clients, or mainly agencies back then, but with the buy side was relatively easy because you were probably working at quite a big brand for an established media. And now we fast forward to 2024 and there is, I don't even know how many, hundreds of thousands of places where advertising could land. And all of those people have sellers, whether that be purely digital through an SSP or an actual sales team. But I feel that they're really struggling unless you're one of the big preferred supplier type publishers. Deal partners, then you're going to really struggle to get in front of media agencies and clients to say, this is why you should be advertising with us. So do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so heavily asymmetric these days. You have 6 companies that effectively control 80% of all media spend in the UK, probably globally. And then you have tens of thousands, I put it at, of companies that want to sell into them. And like you said, we go back 25 years and there was probably 200 companies, 300 companies that were trying to sell into them. That presents its own problems, right? Just you 10,000 into 6 doesn't really go very easily. So that's the first issue. The second issue is 25 years ago, we had, if I worked for Channel 4 or the Daily Mail or whoever it might be, I could call up Cara or Mediacom and say, can I get a copy of your client responsibility list? In fact, I think my day one in agency advertising sales, that's what I did. Is like, here's all the agencies you've got, go get the client responsibility list, or organograms as we used to know it.
When did they die out? Because it's been a long time.
Yeah, I think possibly in some guys they vaguely still exist, but like what they look like and how they are today is different, simply because, we have pre-COVID, we have post-COVID. And pre-COVID, majority of people work from the office, they had desk phones. We didn't have this hot desking thing that we do today. And you'd be able to get a telephone number. And if I want to know who at Publicist now works on the Sky account, I'd be able to see, and I'd be able to see the group account director and the account directors and the account managers and the account executives and the head of programmatic. I'd be able to see all this. And I'd be able to, and there'd be their phone number and I could call them. And look, maybe it went through to voicemail, but if I kept trying enough, if I tried calling that number 30, 40, 50 times, which is the job of a salesperson, I would eventually time it right and they'd pick up the phone and I'd be able to have a 5-minute conversation, if I'm lucky, where I could kind of give an intro pitch to whatever the product is that I'm working on and get their email address, build somewhat of a relationship with them, send over the media pack, which is always what they ask for. Can you send me over your media pack? And then I'd be able to kind of follow up, and I'm following up both on email and I'm following up on phone. These days, with hot desking and working from home, the only way that I can get hold of these people now is LinkedIn or email. Well, could you imagine if you're a media buyer, if you're an account director, especially like a big, well-known account at one of the agencies, what your email inbox looks like today? There's no way they can respond to all of that. And it's similar on LinkedIn. I'm sure that they get loads of messages. Oh, hey, quick question. Yeah, are you free for a quick call? And even maybe incentivizing. It's like, oh, £100 Amazon voucher if we can have a meeting. I don't know. There are all sorts of tactics and strategy. And I think that this has left the industry in a not brilliant place. I think it creates a lack of awareness on the agency side. They are not as aware of what actually is available out in the market, what the different opportunities are, because it's so hard to get cut through. And then you've got on the sales side, people have sales teams there'll be an Omnicom rep and a Group M rep and publicists and what have you. And, their boss is going, right, what's going on with your agency patch? And they don't have enough answers because it's so hard to make it through. And I think it's really sad that, personal contact such as the phone has really dissipated. And funnily enough, coming back to what you said earlier, one of the advantages of being a bit more mature in this industry and having a few grey hairs means that you will have built those relationships with seniors that will afford you the ability to get into those agencies, either at a very senior level who can filter it down for you, or it's at the level where it's actually fingers on keyboards that can help you get stuff done. And I think it's and I would use that as, going back to the previous question, I'd use that as a pro as to why companies should hire more mature people, older people, or they should be considered within that context. So
first thing you do if you launch into a new country is you hire the most connected person you can afford, because you don't have familiarity for your brand yet, but you do for that person. So that person is basically the person opening the doors for you, right?
Yeah, it's hard to open doors. It's a hard market. We've also seen real downward pressure at agencies by procurement teams at clients pushing down margins. We've seen greater level of competition with the management consultancies moving into media buying. It's agencies. It's no wonder that they're leaning on deal partners far more because of just the economics of how deal partnerships work. But I think that the industry is losing something with that. And I think at some point, if your deal partners as an agency is too limited, clients will start to ask questions about, well, what am I really paying you for here? So I think that there is a danger for agencies of trying to recoup the money that lost on agency fees by kind of making them up on deal partnerships and concentrating those. And I don't think it really works well for clients. I don't think it works well for the agencies ultimately. I think it's slightly short-sighted. And it definitely doesn't work for the 10,000 plus companies on the sell side that are going, look, I've got something that's perfect for you, perfect for your client. This isn't me giving a sales pitch. This is me being, look, genuinely, if I sat in your seat, I would be buying this, right? It's not just sales nonsense.
Yeah, for sure. John, we're nearly at time, so I'm going to finish with a slightly random question, which is of your own making, quite frankly, because it comes from George Nichols via the Adtech global chat group. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but he would like to know, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? And you must give a detailed explanation for why you choose.
I think it's a fairly simple answer. Thank you, George, for that, by the way. I think it's a fairly simple answer of 100 duck-sized horses, because it means that I can just kick them out the way. I do not take joy in hurting animals.
Definitely not.
However, in a fight to the death situation, which I believe this is, I would rather be taking on the smaller animals, as I believe I can crush them better.
That was my thought as well. Also, can you imagine a duck bill the size of a horse? That could do some fairly serious damage.
Look, I'm not a fighter. So yeah, it's not really.
Lover, not a fighter.
I'm barely a lover. I don't think fighting a duck the size of a horse, and I couldn't even outrun it. That's the issue. No. So
and most of the horse's attributes, if you like, in a fight, is it's big and it's got big hooves. But if it's duck size, it's like you could stub your toe at worst, isn't it? Okay, one last question then, since we just about got time. Talking of love,
yes,
pineapple. On pizza.
Yeah.
How did that happen? That became one of the trending conversations across your groups. Should pineapple be on pizza? Personally, I think yes. So pizza's too dry without it. My Italian friends would probably disown me for saying so. But how did that happen?
Do you know what? I think it's. I don't think it's something. It's one of those things. It's not just in the group. It's kind of like it's a really easy, icebreakery type conversation. It's beige and it's non-offensive.
It's binary. It's one or the other.
And I think that
don't tell Italians it's not offensive to put pineapple on pizza.
Well, as I think I said somewhere else, my favorite pizza is anchovy and pineapple, because I think it gives that really interesting taste, texture, contrast.
Yeah.
But I think as a conversation, it's just simply inoffensive, and I think that's part of the kind of, and it's no one cares, right? It's not an important topic, so because of it, we can talk about it freely, and everything else like that. And it's used as a callback, and it's just kind of almost like an in-joke now. I don't mind it being talked about. I think it's just fairly inoffensive, and like no one's going to get upset over it. And if it's part of the glue that keeps the group together and keeps the community together, I'm all for it.
I feel slightly disappointed that an ad tech company hasn't been launched yet called Pineapple, because can you imagine?
Maybe
free advertising.
Maybe the industry's waiting for you to do it, Mike.
Maybe. I doubt it. John, thank you so much for being on the Six Cells podcast. Absolute pleasure as always, sir.
Thank you very much.